Hello everyone. Today we will be talking about Introduction to JavaScript. This is chapter 1.7. So let's dig in. So what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a fully fledged programming language. So you have many of you have learned about previously the Python, Java, C, C++. If you have learned those kind of programming languages, JavaScript is also a similar programming language. So the programming language that allows you to add dynamic and interactive elements to the web pages. As I mentioned in my previous lectures, when I talked about website and the analogy being you being a human, the HTML is part of the skeleton, and then the CSS is basically your style, your color of eyes, color of hair, the hairstyle you have, the clothes that you are wearing, the color of clothes. That what makes you you. That is CSS, that basically design. But still, with your style and with your skeleton, you're just a body. What makes your muscles move? What makes you do things? That is your muscles. So JavaScript is basically for that, for programming a website. So while HTML provides the structure and CSS controls the style of a web page, JavaScript enables the web page to interact with the user, making it come alive. So JavaScript is the life of that website that you're going to build. JavaScript can respond to user actions such as clicks, form submissions, or mouse movements, allowing for a more engaging user experience. So JavaScript is really amazing to make things dynamic. Otherwise, you would have a website. You can still have a website with HTML and CSS, but that website will be sitting there and doing nothing. But if you have JavaScript, that will make the website more lifelike. So let's quickly look over the history of JavaScript. JavaScript was created by Brendan Eich at Netscape in 1995 to add dynamic functionality to web pages. So before 1995, we had web pages, and those were mostly static. So nothing is happening in that web page. But after 1995, when JavaScript was invented, that made the websites more interactive. The language was developed in just 10 days and was initially named Mocha, then LiveScript, and finally we call it JavaScript for marketing purposes, as Java was already a popular language, even though they are not connected. So JavaScript and Java is not same thing. Java is a completely different programming language. JavaScript is a completely different programming language, and they are not related. Netscape submitted JavaScript to the ECMA International Standards Organization in 1996. The ECMA script standard is the foundation for interactive programming languages in modern browsers. Different browsers such as JScript, that's from Microsoft, and V8 Engine, that's from Google, have their version of JavaScript, yet follows the ECMA standard. So as it follows the ECMA standard, any JavaScript code written is compatible with all the browsers. That's mostly the case. So JavaScript with HTML and CSS. HTML provides the structure of the web page by defining elements like headings, paragraphs, buttons, and forms. But JavaScript can interact with these elements through the DOM, that is document object model, to dynamically update or manipulate them based on user actions or other conditions. So HTML, you have written something, you have buttons, paragraphs, or whatever it is that you see on the HTML, but through JavaScript, you can change those HTML as we go. So user does some action, and that changes the HTML's title, HTML's text, or all these details. So CSS is used to style the HTML elements, controlling their appearance. JavaScript can modify CSS properties as well dynamically when it is already up there to change the styles of the elements, such as changing the color, size, or position of elements in response to user interactions. Let's practice these concepts, what we just mentioned. So one popular coding platform I use is W3 Schools. You can learn different HTML, CSS, JavaScript from here. This is free. Anyone can use this. So let's start with try it yourself. Run. So this is a heading. This is the HTML. This is the heading for our class. at UMC. If we run this is updated here, and this is the paragraph. Now, as I mentioned, this is an HTML, and no JavaScript is here. I want to do some changes in here. I want to add some JavaScript. I want to add some JavaScript to this code. What we can do is we can have a button here, an element, as we learned before. If we have starting element, we need to have ending element as well. This is a button. So right now nothing happens when I click this button, right? So I want this button to do something. So we add JavaScript. We can add that by adding a script. We are starting the script and we are ending the script. So anything that we need to do needs to happen in between here. So just like programming, we are creating a function, change paragraph. I'm creating this function, and then within this function, I'm writing some code. So I want to change the paragraph. This is the paragraph. This is an HTML element. I want to change whatever is written with the button click. How do I do that? So I need to identify this element first from our JavaScript code. So for that, I can do is I can add an ID here. Paragraph 1. So this is the ID. And now I want from my code to find that element. So I mentioned we use, what do we use? DOM, document object model. So using the document, we can find the objects and then manipulate it. So I'm calling that document get element. So these are all the HTML elements. H1 is an HTML element. P is an HTML element. So I want to find this element, this P. Get element. But how am I doing it? I'm trying to find it by ID. Get element by ID. Now I give the ID name, whatever the ID that we used. So for that, I have a paragraph 1 ID for there, dot inner HTML. Inner HTML is basically within this ID. This is the part that is within this element. So that's the inner HTML of this document element. So inner HTML, I'm going to change this inner HTML. Right now, it is written as this is the paragraph, and let's call it the paragraph has been changed. Now, if we run this code, if I click on this button, nothing is happening. Why? We missed something. We missed something, that is, we defined this paragraph with an ID. We changed this by executing this function, change paragraph, and we're clicking on this button. But we haven't said anywhere that when we click this button, this function will run. We haven't defined that. We need to define that as well. So this button, now this button attribute is on click. On click is basically when we click on this button, something should happen or some method should run. What method? So we've created a method called change paragraph. I'm calling this method from here, change paragraph. Now, when we click on this button, on click, this function should run. What does this function do? This function tries to get the document, that is the whole document, and by ID searches paragraph one document element. This is this element, and then within inner HTML, that is, this is the paragraph element. We are changing these to this paragraph has been changed. If we run this code now and click on the button, see, the paragraph has been changed. What did we do? We changed the HTML code. Now we want to change the HTML's here we have read using JavaScript. We can also change the appearance. So JavaScript can modify CSS properties dynamically to change the style of an element, such as changing the color or something like that. So now I want to change the appearance. I'm adding CSS code for this. If this button is clicked, one thing is we're doing is we're change the paragraph has been changed, so we're changing that. But we also want to get element by ID, change the appearance of this code block or paragraph. So now we're not changing the inner style, inner HTML. We're changing the style of this. So we call it by style, and then we're calling color, and we're setting a value of blue. Let's do some more. Let's do the same element. I'm going to change the font weight. Let's make it bold. So I'm using this memorized, like what are the styles for, how do I change the color, what are the attributes and what are the values. So you don't have to memorize it. There are tons of resources that you can find that uses different CSS styles. So W3, just type W3 schools CSS for paragraph P, HTML P tag. So this is where we see the P tag and different kind of paragraph styles, colors, text indentation, text transformation, or default CSS is this for this paragraph display, margin top, margin bottom, all of this that you can see. Also, you can go into CSS. There are lots of CSS examples that you can use. So for paragraph, we have font family size, font family, font size, all the values that we can use. And there are much more that you can use CSS properties that you can try. CSS selectors. So paragraph dot center, text align, paragraph class. So using different class. We will dig into this deeper when we'll learn more about CSS. Right now, we're just doing some basics. So I changed it to blue and made it bold. If I run this again, by default, this is the paragraph. And this will change after I click on this button because we're calling this function change paragraph. Change paragraph function is called. And then if I do this, see, this has changed now. We have also changed the style of this CSS. So this is that. And then key concepts in JavaScript, there are variables. Variable stores data that can be used and manipulated throughout the script or code. Var, late, and const are the keywords used to declare a variable in JavaScript. So let's see an example with variables. Let's do this. Let's call it let click time equals to 0. Change this. Let's make it this button has been clicked. And then let's add the clicked time. and we are storing this value here, and then click time equals to click time plus 1. So what we're doing is when we run this code and we click on this button, now we change the text as this button has been clicked, and then we are storing this click time is in the variable. So we're going to update this every time. Every time we click on it, click time will be 0 plus 1 equals to 1. The next time it will be clicked, it should be I should keep it outside of the function so that not every time I click on it, the value changes back to 0. So it should be 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals to 2. So next time I click on it, it becomes 3, and it shows over there. So click, so it's clicked 0 times, clicked, 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 clicked. So the number adds on. Let's make it more readable, and initially let's call it clicked once. So the button has been clicked once, the button has been clicked twice or 2 times, 3 times. Let's add one more thing. So let's add 3 times. The button has been clicked 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. So here, this is an example of variables, stores data that can be used and manipulated through the script or code. Var, let, and const are keywords used to declare a variable in JavaScript. JavaScript allows you to define functions that execute specific tasks, which can be triggered by events like clicking a button. That's what I showed. This is a function that we define, and by clicking on a button, we call this function and we can change things. These connect user interactions like clicking a button with the corresponding JavaScript function. DOM manipulation is JavaScript can access and modify the structure of the HTML document, allowing the dynamic changes to the content and layout of the web page. That's what we showed here. So we modified the HTML, we modified the CSS using connectors like this button, and we used functions as well. Basic JavaScript program. This web page will initially show the text to see the traditional first program greeting, click below, and then a button named click me. When the user clicks on the button, the next will be replaced. The text will be replaced hello world. To write this program, we will use the script tag inside our HTML code. Inside this, there's a spelling mistake. This is inside our HTML code. Use the concept of function and avoid the CSS styling for now. So this is it, where we have this JavaScript code. Within the HTML, we have the script. Script has a function called display hello. We are storing a variable message, and the message is document.get element by ID, and the message that's basically the h3 title 3 message, and then we're making message to document message equals to document.get element by ID message. We're getting this text h3 to see the traditional first program getting click below. This is the text in h3, and then we change it to h1 and then hello world. So that changes if we click on this button. A function in JavaScript is similar to mathematical function, receiving arguments, performing a calculation, and potentially returning a result. Syntax to call a function is function name, 0 or more arguments separated by commas. So this is similar to how we do coding in Java, C, C#, or any common programming language. This is similar to that. We have function name, and we have a number of arguments that we can pass within the function. Function is defined with function keyword, function name, and a list of parameters in parentheses. Function definition should typically be placed in a script container within the web page's head or an external JavaScript file for better organization and maintainability. It's okay if you don't understand it right away, but as we start doing this more, you will get the hang of it. So functions are basically here. Here we start with the function. That means this is the function. Then we name something. This name can be any name that we define. Here it's a display hello. or we can say my first program or my work, and then curly braces. That's basically the function name. And within this function name, this parenthesis, you can pass different parameters, so different values. The values can be used for different purpose or different reasons. We will look into that in future examples. In the previous example, the button had an on-click attribute with the value of display hello. That's a JavaScript function call, and the syntax matches the preceding syntax. The parentheses are empty because there is no need to pass any argument. For example, here, display hello, the parenthesis is empty because we do not need to pass any argument values to the display hello function. If there were arguments, they would need to be separated by commas, and proper style suggests that you insert the space after each comma. So there are variables. Variables is essentially a box that holds a value, such as a string or a number. So variables are basically behind the scene storing one memory cell that you can keep your data on. A variable is a keyword in JavaScript. var is a keyword in JavaScript, and it is illegal to use keywords as variable names. So there are different keywords: let, var, function. These are keywords, and you cannot use the keywords into your naming your functions or anything, or naming your variables or anything. So when you name something that is yours, you cannot use the keywords as the name. Keywords are reserved for specific function in the language. Let and const are other two keywords used to declare a variable. JavaScript is a loosely typed or dynamically typed language, meaning you don't need to explicitly declare the type of the variable. In many languages, if you are trying to store a string variable, you need to say this is a variable type of string. If you are storing names, you have to mention this is a variable of type characters or strings. If you are having floating numbers, that is 3.14 or something like that with decimals, you need to define it define it in the programming language where it says it is a floating value, float, float. But that's for Java or C or that kind of programming language. But JavaScript is loosely typed. That means you don't have to define what kind of variable you are storing. You just type the let and then type the variable name, and you store string or numbers or floating values, anything that you want. You don't have to define it within the type. The type is determine the value assigned to it. So you assign the values. That's how it's determined if the variable is a string or a character or a number, integer, floating number, anything. You define it by storing that number. Local variables that are confined to a specific function, preventing unintended interaction between variables in different parts of the program. So local variables are the variables that are stored within that function. For example, here within this function, variable message is stored within this function. This is an example of a local variable. But when I did this practice example, I clicked let click time equals to 1 here. This is not a local function because this is not within the function. This is outside of the function code. So this part is within the function, starting from this curly braces and this curly braces. This is within the function. This is outside of the function. So this is not a local variable, but within this example, this is a local variable. Global variables are accessible for every block in the code. So this is a local variable, global variable, and if I write another function, that function can also use this value, click time. So variable assignment in the functions body, the first statement is a variable declaration for the message variable. The first step in using a variable is to put a value inside it. An assignment statement assigns a value into a variable. In the given example, the second and third statement in the function body are assignment statements. So here they have declared a variable message, but they did not assign anything to this variable. That means they did not store any information in this variable. But in the second line, message equals to document.getElement by ID message, here they are actually assigning values to this variable. These are assigning statement. Here as well, message.outer HTML. So message has an outer HTML part, and they are assigning values to the outer HTML. This is an assignment operation. Here in our example, we defined the variable click time and we also assigned the value in the first line. We could also do it like this. Now it is declaring and we're not assigning anything. And later on, we are assigning the value. In this line as here as well, click time equals to click time plus 1. This is also an assignment because we are storing new values in the click time variable. Buttons are different types of, there are different types of button, each with its own syntax. Syntax is basically rules. Let's take a simple button, for instance, input type equals to button, value equals to button label, on click equals to click event handler. The code uses input tag. You might not think of a button as user input, but it is. The user chooses to do something by clicking on a button. Later, we will introduce the user input elements like text controls and checkboxes. That's also you use the input tag. Objects in JavaScript. An object is a software entity that represents something tangible. It can be manipulated with JavaScript code. Behind the scenes, all of the elements in the web page are represented as objects. So what objects are, I will post a video. What is objects in object-oriented programming? You don't have to understand everything right away, but just for some basic idea, I will post a video of objects, how objects are represented in code, and then you can watch that video to get the idea what objects are. The document object represents the entire web page DOM, and it can retrieve element using methods like getElement by ID. When a browser loads a web page, the browser software generates objects for the head element, the body element, and the h3 element, and so on. There's also an object associated with the entire web page. That's the object's name is document. So the document object model or DOM, DOM models all of the parts of the web page document as nodes in a node tree, similar to directory tree, except instead of showing directories that include other directories and files. Each node represents either an element or a text item that appears between an element start and end text or an attribute within one of those elements. So here it is the example of a node tree. This is the HTML code, and this is the DOM tree, node tree. So it starts with document, and within this document, we have HTML starting here and ending here. That means we have the HTML. And within this HTML, we have one value. The green ones are values, not exactly other nodes or trees. So here, the language is English that is defined here. And we have an head object and we have a body object. So that is it, head and body. Within head, we have another object called title. So head has title and title has value hello. And in the body, we have three things, h3, and then input type, not actually three, two things, h3 and input type. Within this h3, we have one is that the value ID message that is in green. And then we have the text itself. To see the traditional first programming greeting, click hello. This is the text. And for input, we have the type button and the value click me. So this is how the tree is built. If you have any confusion or any questions, do not hesitate to reach me. Just email me. We can arrange a Zoom session as well, so that we can discuss your problems and you can have better understanding and better idea about the class. So let's quickly look over forms. Forms are essential for grouping input controls like buttons, text controls, checkboxes on a web page. Client side and server side are two types of primary forms processing. The client side is processing involves handling input from the users directly. using JavaScript, which can lead faster performance since it avoids sending data to server. And the server-side processing is preferably for large amounts of data, complex calculations, or security and data sharing concerns. The form data is sent to the server for processing, and the results are sent back to the client. And so this is an example of a form. This is a form for new employee. This is a form for delete employee. This is another form for update employee. So these are all different forms for employee phone manager. We have first name, last name, and what is the phone for the employee. We add that delete employee. We say the names of the employee that we want to delete, and the employee is deleted. And then update employee. So we have Tree Hayes. The first name is Tree, last name is Hayes, and we change the phone number and we can update that. So say a big company needs to handle their vast employee data. Which processing should it be? Server answer is, if we have vast amount of data, the processing should be server-side processing. This means the company involves a large amount of data which requires complex calculation. This circumstance, server-side processing is preferable. So this was just a basic understanding of what JavaScript is. We will look into JavaScript in details in our next videos, next classes. So if you don't understand some concepts, it's okay. It's just a basic overview. We will learn more about these things in our next classes. Thank you.